Good morning, folks. Councilman Rasmussen here, coming to you with my update from our council meeting last night, December 19th. It's our last council meeting of the year, hopefully, unless for some reason a special session needs to be called for next week. But they're not a terribly long agenda, so we'll go over some of the updates and things that have happened, and then give you a quick rundown of what the agenda items were. First and foremost, start off with a big thank you to the Smyrna Police Department and the Public Works Department, who did a ton of work to put on the Christmas in Smyrna event. It was last Sunday. If you were able to attend, that's awesome. It was rainy weather, and so I know it kept a lot of people out. They had a pretty good turnout for the 5K. I know I was there along with some other folks with some beverages in the beverage tent, but I know the rainy weather was a little bit rough, and then a lot of folks came out for the parade afterwards. So thank you so much to the staff and the team that make that happen, and everybody who came out. We've done that event a couple of times now. I say we, the police department has done that event a couple of times now. It gets better and better every year, so looking forward to doing it again next year. Also, on the update side, I think a lot of people have already know a little bit about some of the sewer issues that have happened here in town. The big one that I think has disrupted most of the traffic has been on Commerce Street. So on East Commerce Street, between 13 and heading towards Locust Street, we had, starting Friday night, a collapsed pipe. It was tried to determine whether it was a blockage. Our team was out there later on Friday night, and then they were out there pretty much ever since, trying to figure out what was going on. There was some sewage that backed up into the Bethel AME basement there, and that's sort of what identified the problem. It ends up being that a significant portion of that pipe actually collapsed. Trying to determine what caused the collapse, because some work was going on in that pipe earlier in the week, and is part of the relining project, and so there may have been some damage done from that work that was happening. We're not sure and trying to determine it. In the end, that means there's a big section of pipe that we're going to end up having to replace, which is a very large project. It's going to involve a lot of excavating. We all know what this looks like, right? Traffic flow problems and issues like that. This is, as we talked about in our council meeting last night, this is a symptom of not replacing the infrastructure when it needs to be replaced. Unfortunately, this is one of a number of projects that have happened in recent years where these pipes should have been planned for and replaced a long time ago. And they weren't, because folks didn't want to budget the money and do the work that's necessary. And so this is the second major sewer failure that we've had on that section, this East Commerce Street section. Locust Street was 2 years ago. These are problems that we've been sort of working to identify and address, but unfortunately the failure happened before we were able to actually get in there and do the replacement. So we are now in that terms of trying to find the emergency fixes, get everything working again, and ultimately this was on our project list. We were already starting work here, so it's going to have to push that up and prioritize it a little bit. We also had some sewer issues on North Main Street this last week. There's a couple of those. That North Main Street project is the next big one on our list for the sewer and water replacement pieces, because those pipes are also quite old and in quite need of replacement, and unfortunately hadn't been prioritized when they probably should have been 10, 15 years ago. So unfortunately, that impacts some of our community, impacts everybody who travels down that way. I wish there was a better way for us to have to solve this problem, but unfortunately there's not. And our town staff, if you saw them out there, they've been out there pretty much 24/7 working on this, and they will be until they get it all shored up, and then ultimately find a longer term solution that we can implement, hopefully on our terms versus on emergency terms, as we're sort of operating right now. Not a fun weekend for those guys. If you see them, please give them our greatest thanks and support. On the side of just regular updates, a couple of things that are coming up. So most folks hopefully know this. The leaf and yard collection has stopped. That's not going to start back up again until March. So hopefully you got out all of your yard waste. Leaf yard waste collection. Leaf collection continues on until the end of the month. So there's still folks out there collecting leaves. If you're raking them out to the sidewalk, they'll come along with the vac truck and get those for you. But yard waste collection is on pause now for the winter. We will be starting on Tuesday, December 27th. These are the normal waste collection days. Christmas tree pickup. So if you have Christmas trees, you can put that out based on your yard waste collection days, and the town staff's going to come along and grab Christmas trees. The couple of other little things. One of the ones that my kids look forward to the most, Smyrna Santa Run. So Citizens Hose Company and the Lions Club every year do the Santa Run. We've all hopefully seen Santa on the back of the fire trucks rolling around town. If you follow them on Facebook, you can see where they're at. I'd recommend you certainly do that because they do post regular updates, sort of where they are, how they're progressing through the city, and then obviously lots of people like to post that they saw them and kind of get out there. We end up usually being one of the very last ones that are done as they're rolling back through town on the 24th. But so that runs the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. You can find the neighborhoods that they're doing on each one of those days. I'll give a quick rundown. The 22nd, Twin Willows, Burtonwood, Bombay Woods, Commerce Square, Woodland Manor, Woodland Trailer Court, Smyrna Landing, and Green Meadows. The 23rd, Christiana Apartments, Cambridge Village, Sunnyside Village, Wixfield, Southern View, Worthington, Brentford Station 1 and 2, Willowwood, and Hickory Hollow. And on December 24th, here downtown, Sunnyside Acres, Lake Como Woods, Coleman Manor, Gardenside, Mill Creek, Lake Drive West, Lake Drive, Town of Smyrna, and Glenwood. So we'll be out there on the 24th with some cookies and some thanks for Santa and the great folks at the fire company and Lions Club who put this on for us. Those are the updates for the little things. As far as the agenda last night, we actually had a pretty short agenda, which is typical for the last meeting of the year. There were a couple of public hearings for a couple of zoning issues. We had a few items that ended up getting pushed back to later meetings. So the only real agenda items, one is we had to reauthorize Kent County to be our CDBG administrator. This is something we do every year. There's community development block grant funds that are used to help homeowners implement emergency repairs to their homes. The town does not administer this program, Kent County does, but we have to give Kent County the permission to apply for and implement that program within the town of Smyrna. Unfortunately, not a lot of people utilize it because I think there's some fear. You have to, as taking part of the funds, you have to put a lien on your property if you sell within a certain amount of time, you are required to pay back those funds. If you hold on to it for long enough, if you live there permanently, versus trying to flip it or get it ready to move, those funds are ultimately forgiven. It's a great program for people who need emergency assistance to shore up their home. So this might be a roof, this might be some sort of structural issue, this might be windows, things that make a home a riskier place to live. There is some funding out there, and it is administered by Kent County as part of this Community Development Block Grant Program. Every year we basically redo an authorization that they're allowed to operate that program within our municipality. So we did that last night. There were 2 zoning ordinances that we did. These are very similar to ones that I've mentioned numerous times in the past, in that we are changing the zoning for a lot of properties to bring it to where we have designated in our comprehensive plan. The 2020 comp plan included zoning changes for something like 1,200 properties in town to create better alignment, to fix some zoning issues that have been existing for a long time. So last night there were 2 of these. The first one was to rezone 22 South Main Street from central commercial to IR, which is institutional and recreational. Institutional and recreational is basically town properties, libraries, museums, things like that. Those are IR zoned. It allows them to have assembly uses in a commercial district. This property specifically needed to be rezoned because this is going to be the home of the new Friends of Duck Creek Library. The property has been assembled. They're working through their plans. They actually took their plans to planning and zoning 2 weeks ago, I guess, a week and a half ago, and got a little bit of feedback. They're going to be making a couple of changes to address some questions that came up from planning and zoning. Ultimately, they're going to be resubmitting that, and eventually they'll be bringing it to council here to show us what the plans are for it. But part of that is this is basically something required. We've already approved the comp plan that included these zoning changes, so we had to update that from central commercial to IR zoning to be in compliance with our comprehensive plan. And the second one is another one of these. There's a property at 129 North Union Street that for nearly 100 years has been some sort of manufacturing use. That property has, for some reason, been zoned residential, even though it has been a manufacturing use long before there was any residential properties anywhere around it. The comprehensive plan included changing that to a limited manufacturing zoning, basically to make it what it has always been, rather than a non-conforming use, which is that sort of people refer to grandfathered. The technical term for it is a non-conforming use. So that was, again, the change was made to bring that up to the comprehensive plan designation that was established as a limited manufacturing versus residential property. Those are the only real things that I think had a lot of, that were there public comment or questions about them. We had another item where we had to do a fence adjustment for a piece of town property. We have to abide by our own rules and go through our own processes. The new water tower property the new water tower is going to be built on property just north of Parkview RV, between that and the I think there's a gas station property up there. We want to make sure we have an 8-foot fence around that property in order to discourage anybody from going on there either during construction or trying to climb the water tower or anything like that. So technically, anything taller than the established 4-foot fence on the front and 6-foot fences on the sides, we need a variance or a fence adjustment. So we approved that. We want to have a 8-foot fence all the way around that property to keep it cordoned off a little bit better for folks who might want to try and climb the water tower, which probably would have been me as a kid. And then the last one was we had to make a quick change to allow the redevelopment authority. So this is the Smyrna Slum Clearance and Redevelopment Authority. It's kind of an awful name, but the RDA is an entity that the city created back in, I think, 2014 to allow us a little bit more flexibility in trying to redevelop or reinvest in properties in the downtown. It's a neat entity in that it is established and allowed by the state to exist and do things that the municipality can't technically do. Things like buying properties, fixing them up and selling them, or buying properties, holding on to them and renting them. It can operate almost as an entirely separate entity, but it has not needed to in these last, I guess, 8 years or so, because honestly, it's pretty small. Really, what they've done so far is a series of facade grants, some small projects that can help to fund the rehabilitation of some programs or homes in the downtown. The hope is to have the RDA do a lot more. It is empowered to do a lot more interesting things and make investments in our community that the town cannot do. However, there are little bits and pieces here. One of the things we realize is it's very difficult for them to get checks signed because they have to constantly be changing who can do those and who has permission to sign the checks that are established. So last night there was a request to allow them to assign their own bank signatories, basically the president, a couple of the town staff members, and the treasurer of that entity. I would love to see the RDA do a lot more. One of the requests in our budget for next year is to fund a number of new projects and new efforts through the RDA. I think their budget request is $250,000. I don't know if they'll get the whole thing, but the idea is that those funds would be used to make deeper, larger investments in properties that have the potential to help revitalize the downtown. Maybe that means fixing up apartments above a property that has been underutilized to try and encourage more people to live, work, and play downtown. Maybe that's bigger changes or improvements to a facade that a small grant honestly just isn't going to get done. Something that takes a much larger investment and where the town feels it's necessary to step in and do something like that. Ultimately, I think it will grow over time. I hope that it will. It's a piece that I think has a lot of potential, has unfortunately just been underutilized for a number of years. But those were our big items from last night. Not a ton of stuff on the agenda. So I hope that everybody is having a great holiday season so far. Happy Hanukkah to those who are celebrating Hanukkah right now. The updates, I'll just make sure you remember these guys. Smyrna Santa Run starting up on the 22nd. We'll be out there on the 24th waiting for Santa. Yard waste collection has paused for the winter, but Christmas tree pickup will be available starting on Tuesday, December 7th. And if you do have leaves, you can still get those out through December 30th for the vac truck to come along and pick those up. Anybody have any questions or anything, please always reach out. I'm happy to help or provide information as I can. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's, Happy Holidays to everybody, and we'll see you all in the new year. Take care.